Trapman's game was hit a couple of nights ago.
Hey! Just give it all up and nobody gets hurt. It's only money.
So where do we go from here? We start with Trapman. They are not gonna okay anything major here. What does that mean? They just want you to talk to him.
Hey, what's going on? Hey!
Talk to him. Shove him around a little. Don't hurt him too badly, because they don't want him hurt.
Let's have a beer.
Hey, Lou, what's that?
You know what Brad Pitt was doing in this movie?
What's that?
Strumming my life.
Oh, God damn it. No. Come on.
One time.
Stop that.
Two times.
Doing something with his
I
words.
was praying to God nobody would fucking sing that. I was
That's
like,
why I got out the way.
I was like, Brian's not here anymore. That's what I would expect it from him.
I got it out the way. You ain't got to worry about it.
Okay.
Hey, that's a memory of Brian, man.
All right. Tribute to
All right,
him.
I'll pour a little bit on the ground for Brian.
Leon,
Yeah.
you told me I missed all that shit. God damn it.
Yes, we are talking about killing them softly. And they're not killing anybody softly with the messages in this movie because they're putting it all out there.
Or not even with messages, just with when people get killed, it's pretty fucking loud.
Yeah. Well, that is true. But they have some subtext in here that they are taking a club out and beating the shit out you
Yeah,
with.
you can't even really call it subtext anymore.
No, not
Just
anymore.
text. Ain't nothing sub about it.
No, when they treat your head like a baseball with it. No, not at all. A lot of good things in this movie. A lot of good things, but subtlety is not one of them at all. This is one of the things that this movie does. It has a message about economics. What it's trying to say, I don't know. But, if you're going to have a heavy-handed message, I think it should be clear and actually have something to do with the film that it's a part of. I didn't see that with this movie.
Well, it's showing you, it's setting up, the year, the scene, what was going on at that time where, the economy was already starting to crumble and fall to shit. And it was also affecting the mafia, the mob. I mean, it really was. I mean, what I loved about this movie is that it really it really showed you how how the mafia, the kind of deconstruction of the mafia, kind of like what you saw in Donnie Brasco.
True.
Where you see these guys who are still trying to do their old games, old tricks, yet, the world is collapsing and they're collapsing along with.
And that's that is actually a good point. I see what they're saying. I maybe that's a connection that I missed. I just don't think that it actually connects here. And I feel like that message, this might have been a better story without it. I mean, this is based on a 1974 novel, Kogan's Trade. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Kogan's Trade.
Kogan's Trade. And so this is a movie that was, this is a story, a book that was written way before we had any of the economic subtext that they're trying to put in here. Now,
This is a director who is not an American guy, who does not live in America, who was watching those elections, was thinking about making this book, and said, I've got an idea.
boy, I'm going to stick it to these Americans.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell
I'll
them.
show
To
them.
these Yanks.
Yeah, well, he's yanking his dick. Because I didn't get nothing from this. But look, not to say that there's not anything good in this movie. There's actually some brilliance here. Yeah, Brad Pitt is Jackie Kogan, the title character from the book, I guess. Yeah. And he is...
No relation.
No relation at all.
You don't have to guess that. You don't have to guess that, by the way. We'll let you know.
I don't know who that guy is.
They traded him for another Kogan.
Now, he's brought in by the mob to investigate why these high-paying poker games that have been mob-controlled, who has come in? Who are the two dumbasses that would dare come in and try to rob these poker games and think that they can get away with it? He's a killer, a contract guy, cleanup guy. And you can only imagine that whoever the two people are that have done this, and Brad Pitt's character gets a hold of them, it's not going to be pretty. Not at all. But, hey, he will kill them softly, though.
Like he says in the movie.
Just like the title of the movie. We didn't get a soft kill. That would be false advertising.
He had the titular line.
See, Korey, what you're missing is that it's not these guys that Brad Pitt is killing softly. It's the mob itself that's being killed softly by the economy. But see, you too dumb to recognize that.
Now, did you get that really from the movie?
No, you got it from Wikipedia.
He got it because I told him when we were outside.
Man, you guys won't give me credit for nothing, will you?
No. Wait, no, you can make that shit up.
Eventually, you understand what they're talking about, sorta, with the allegory stuff. It's just that it's so that the director does not want you to miss it. Like, it's not even an option. If they had done it like 3 times in the movie, you would have gone, that must mean something. And think about that. You go, oh, yeah. I get what they're saying there. But here it's like every 5 minutes throughout the entire film. Like, we got it. If it was organic in any way to the actual story, then maybe I would feel like that was a more relevant thing to keep beating us over the head with. But it's just a distraction from the story, which in and of itself should be interesting enough without that.
But I have to tell you, I mean, despite all that beating over the head, as soon as Brad Pitt hits the scene, it seems like he did a fucking Jedi mind trick. It's like, you don't have to worry about the subtext of subtexts. You don't have to worry about this. Because as soon as he hit the screen...
Was Ringo Starr a Jedi?
I was about to say,
This is not the yellow submarine you're looking
Leon, these aren't the accents you're looking for.
Oh, yeah,
these aren't the accents you're looking for.
Ringo Fett.
Okay, but the thing is, when Brad Pitt comes on, he's so fucking good in this movie.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he is representing like the old gunslinger, and the Wild West is becoming more civilized. You know, they're bringing in the railroad, and you know the mob is becoming a bunch of pussies. And he's like, man, what the fuck is going on with you guys? It's like, what we have to, I have to negotiate how I need to take care of my business. And you know, when that part of the story, you know, comes into play, I found myself so drawn to it. I'm like, wow, I love this. Is the shit that other mob movies don't even bother to film. You know, where the movie becomes a kind of a procedural film on how to like dispose of fuck ups. You know?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm right there with you. That's what I loved about the movie. I mean, you know, you have not just Brad Pitt. Sorry.
What accent is that?
That's a little bit more Elmer Fudd, but
I cannot understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. For the record.
you have not only Brad Pitt, but James Gandolfini and Richard Jenkins and Ray Liotta, and this is a simple mob story. But what makes it more than that, to me at least, was the procedural. Was like showing how, like any other mob movie or TV show, Sopranos, somebody needs to get hit. They send a guy, he hits him, they move on to the next scene. Here, they broke it down like, well, it's not as easy as that. You got to get approval. And this is going to happen when the guy, when he begs and how much you have to hit him. And it makes you as an audience member have to sit there through it and go like, oh, wow, this isn't as glamorous as I thought. But with these actors, it's more like it's these great dramatic pieces that are just kind of built onto this framework of a mob movie. And I just love every one of those scenes. Like the scenes with Gandolfini and Brad Pitt. Actually, every scene with Brad Pitt is awesome. But almost every character in here was just like, wow, I'm just really enjoying these.
You come up here to do something, remember? For that.
All right, go get him. Go get the guy and we'll set this thing up. Go get him now. We'll set the thing up. Go get him!
I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna do. You're gonna go to bed. I'm gonna call you at 7:30. And if I don't wake you up, I am gonna drop a dime on a couple of cops I know. I'm gonna take you back to where you're supposed to be.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. No ass. No more booze. No nothing. Get yourself a shower and go to bed. I'll get you up and tell you where you gotta be.
I don't take orders from you.
7:30. Get some sleep.
I wish I could feel the same way you did, but it's precisely that problem with what's building onto an otherwise interesting crime story that was my biggest problem with this film. I felt like all those scenes, as digressive as they were, where it was just two characters who ostensibly should be sitting there talking about something that would advance the plot, but instead are just off on their completely unimportant tangent that I guess is supposed to be there to make them feel like they have depth. Didn't feel like that. It just felt like a cheaper Quentin Tarantino sequence. You know, I mean, sure, not as stunt writing as Tarantino is, but at the same time, his stuff is more fun to watch. I was honestly bored watching these conversations play out.
I don't see how you say that. I was never bored.
Yeah,
I thought
same
they
here.
had such great dialogue.
It took me back to those days, and we said this about one movie that we had seen this year, and it's Seven Psychopaths. That movie felt like a Tarantino knockoff, but at least the sequences where they went off on these tangents of dialogues and whatnot, it felt like it was part of the story. Here they had these scenes of dialogue, flashback moments. They seemed to not be there for any other reason than to say, hey, look how clever this is.
That's funny because the one thing I thought when I walked out of this was like, wow, this is so much closer to what I wanted from Seven Psychopaths. Where with Seven Psychopaths was just kind of scattershot and all over the place and tried to cobble something together by the end. I was like, not feeling it.
Well-
but here, I got that.
Well, once again, with the scenes with Gandolfini, which I think are just brilliant, watching him and Brad Pitt play off each other, it is one of those things where it's about character. It's about their character. Gandolfini is one of those, an old gunslinger, a fellow gunslinger that you can tell through the story. And you see Brad Pitt just looking at him while Gandolfini's telling him, like, how he's getting, how he's getting busted, how his life is basically turning to shit. And how, because of that, he's not the guy that Brad Pitt used to know. And Brad Pitt, almost wants to put him out of his... Brad Pitt, he almost wants to put him out of his misery.
Right.
Because he sees, oh, man, we are a fucking dying breed now.
And that's brilliant. I mean,
Yeah.
see, that's what I think Cyrus hit it right there when he said there was a compelling enough story without having to have some of the other heavy-handed stuff in there. The director, by the way, is Andrew Dominic, he's done movies that I love. Chopper, the first movie that I remember.
Chopper's great. Yeah.
Who was that? That was the first movie I saw.
Eric Bana, right?
Eric
Bana,
Bana,
yeah.
And in his last movie was the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. I feel happy for getting that all out like that. But
Right off the top of your head. No Wikipedia.
no
nothing.
Wikipedia. Did you see my eyes looking away? I
No,
wasn't even
you
looking
were
at the screen.
staring right at the ceiling.
Yeah.
Which might I
There's
say...
a screen up
Wait
there.
a minute. You guys accuse me of using Wikipedia where you can see my tablet is off,
By the-
and yours just glowing on you so much I can't even see your eyeballs.
But my
and
eyes
you're
were
gonna pretend
looking
like bullshit.
Now, if you look up in the ceiling, you see a notepad up there.
He's a little too concerned about the invisible audience here that is judging him, wondering, oh, did Korey just come up with that all by his movie knowledge inside his brain? No.
This guy, I like both those movies. Even as slow as they say this, the assassination of Jesse James is, I still defend that movie.
Yeah, no, I actually love that movie.
I like that movie a lot.
I like it a lot, but it's slow.
But it is slow. But that's, it's one of those movies. For anybody who says, man, you guys are always complaining about movies being slow, like that movie. So when I criticize this movie for probably being a little too long, I'm not saying it's because I don't like slow movies. I just think that it's unnecessarily long. There's things they could have taken out. But this whole thing with the economics, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to. It's almost an allegory for how the mob has been affected by a poor economy. That's why they have to be very careful about how they do things. But also, when you get a character like James Gandolfini who comes in, who is great. Scenes with him and Brad Pitt, you begin to see why the things are crumbling for the mob in this era, because this is a guy who no longer, for whatever reasons, cannot do his job effectively. But why is he still on call? What I mean? Because
they have no other choice.
Why are poker games being able to be hit twice and nobody can figure out how to take care of this or get their thumb on what's happening here? It's cool to see the operations of what the mob is like, but I think that's a story that they could have done simplistically by being straightforward with that, while not trying to see so heavy with all this other stuff.
I don't know. I like that. It took its time with. And sure, no, I'm gonna come out and say, yeah, there are a lot of unnecessary parts. There were parts where I was scratching my head, going, they really didn't need that scene to be all that long. But the thing is, they kind of, in some ways, they make up for it with the characters, and even some of the stuff that you may find unnecessary, like the odd, kind of cool camera angles that they choose, to film some of this stuff, especially during there's a great car scene. There's several different scenes we've talked about. There's a scene where a guy's on drugs.
We were talking about that. No, there's when the movie is creative, it's really hit something that is compelling. There's one scene where Brad Pitt pulls off a hit, and it's all done in slow motion, and it's amazing to watch. I'm thinking it's just a tad bit over the top and a little too long for a movie that's already being stretched out for me, but a lot of imagination went into that.
It's a movie that only feels long. It's only 97 minutes.
Yeah, as far as you say, cut some stuff out,
and
it should be a TV show.
That's why, to me, I agree with you, though, it felt so much longer than that, because everything went on longer than it needed to, from the James Gandolfini conversations that never seemed to end, to even that drug scene that at first, while we were seeing from the viewpoint of this druggy guy, what it's like to try be the guy telling a story while on heroin. At first, it's funny, but my God, it just keeps going. You're like, okay, we got it.
I will say I love that scene though, because I felt like I was on heroin trying to talk to somebody, and then I was just falling asleep after.
I sprinkled some heroin on your popcorn.
You didn't hear Cyrus say that it went on too long? You can't say you love it. You're supposed to agree with him.
Yeah, we're supposed to agree on everything.
He's supposed to be his little bitch.
Sorry, don't let them do this, man.
I want my $50 back.
No, don't let them do this. Don't let them come between us like
Right,
this.
I see what they're doing here. They're trying to drive a wedge between you and I, and that scene alone is not enough.
Hey, Korey, there's a nice perch on his shoulder right there, just waiting for you.
You know what? I'm glad you two see it.
Yeah, I'll go get some crackers.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that you two, Ghost and Leon, agree perfectly on everything about this movie, especially that whole end sequence where Brad Pitt explains the
That is a beautiful moment in the movie. Leon and I talked about that ending all night
Hey, let me
long.
just say what Cyrus just said.
Give him a cracker, Leon.
I can't even whistle right now.
Throw a cracker at him.
wait, are not y'all not eye
He's
to
already
eye?
sitting on the shoulder of a cracker.
Shut up.
But no. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just saying bad things about this movie
Polly
because
is a crackhead.
Polly wants a rock. But there's besides the things that we were talking about, the drug scene, the first hit. There's some of the actors that we mentioned. Richard Jenkins, who was one of my favorite actors as a mysterious mob driver here. Ray Liotta. Ray Liotta is one of these Asian guys who's just stupid. I would even say this is another reason why I found this story about the mob being so great, because people, after all these years, are just doing dumb things. And you just don't do it in the mob because they're going to get you. You could watch Goodfellas and see a continuation of Henry Hill in this movie right here. And you would probably have the ending that you want.
That's why I would love I wish they would have called this movie like Natural Born Fuck Ups, because it is really the story of fuck ups, how they begin and how they end.
Yeah, it's if you stay in the mob too long, you're gonna die.
Everybody's a fuck up really here, except for Brad Pitt, who is that guy who's just exasperated by how everybody is a fuck up, even his own bosses. Who, as we see, Richard Jenkins, who plays just kind of a middleman type of guy, like really a pencil pusher more than anything else. Who's just like, well, the bosses, you know how they get. They're like negotiating stuff back and forth, and you're like, they could be talking about any office meeting,
Right.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
How banal and uninteresting. it is
that's
to
great.
come
That's
to
true.
Important decisions.
Yeah, it's just that they have much more severe firing practices.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what makes
slip. It's a red slit.
But
and that's what holds. That's another thing that holds your interest, because you could point that out. Where it makes even more sense. Where it's like, all right, leave the economic shit alone. Turn that TV off, please. Turn the TV fucking off.
I never thought I'd say this, but isn't there a game on?
What? Something actually made you want to watch sports? If that don't say something. But besides these actors that we're mentioning, we were talking earlier about some of the people that you might not recognize so much. Ben Mendelsohn, who's an Australian, who was so great in Animal Kingdom.
Kingdom.
He's who in this movie
perfect.
plays the heroin addict that we were referring to earlier. And if you ever wanted to just, without anybody even saying the words heroin addict, this guy just walks on the screen. He looks like he was just dipped in grease and ready to fry.
He just sweats.
He sweats the whole movie.
He's like crack rat.
Yeah, like whoever did his makeup, all they had was a stick of butter. Just wipe him down with the butter.
He looked like crack rat because he kept looking like Splinter at times. Like, he's wearing that fucking old shit raggedy ass
Crack rat. I like that. I told you earlier, that sounds like a cartoon I would love to see.
It's a big show in Australia.
I felt unclean just watching this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just like, oh, I feel like I got to put on deodorant or something.
The guy is so greasy. If they ever want somebody to play a Jerry curl in the movie, he could do it.
He is
Our armpit.
And one time he kept talking about having sex with some woman, I just kept thinking like, oh, I feel sorry for this woman, whoever she is. Even if she's a hooker, I don't care.
Oh yeah, he keeps talking about having sex, and it's disgusting to hear him say just simple words.
Yeah.
He comes on the screen and says, "Oi," and it's like, ugh.
And he's
Because
talking
that you can't buy, but I do love the fact that they tell him several times, like, man, you smell like shit. And when you look at him, you start to smell shit. You're like, oh man, wow, great direction.
This movie was brought to you in smell-o-vision without even having to put any odors out there. That guy whoever did the makeup on him, and his performance was awesome. But there's another guy who I think, I'm not sure, is an Austin native. I just know that one of our friends, Tim, Tim used to put him in his movies.
Damn.
You've seen a Tim production.
Now, what you trying to say about your friend Tim?
I didn't say, man. I said you've seen a Tim production. How great it is.
So this guy's
I didn't know how great it is.
No,
We don't get invited to all the world premieres of Tim's movie at his house.
It is so great. He discovered an actor that is now working with Brad Pitt. We're talking about a guy named Scoot McNairy.
Scoot has a long resume with work with monkeys.
I'm sure Scoot is gonna he's gonna try to make sure nobody discovers the whole fucking movies he used to be in.
Yeah, wasn't he on that Kirk Cameron sitcom?
Was it? He's Skeet Ulrich's brother.
Skeet
Scoot Ulrich.
No, but this guy, he's amazing. In this movie, he's one of the
dirtbag twins.
Yeah, with the guy that we the grease ball. And this guy he finishes out the duo of these two dumbasses that pull off this job. These are guys who couldn't shoplift a fucking candy bar, much less try to pull off a job trying to rob the mob. But
you don't want them to pump your gas. That's how fuck up they look
to be
like.
fair, they are successful at pulling it off. They were just dumb to do it in the first place.
Yeah, blind luck that they got away with pulling it off at all.
Oh, yeah.
They're walking in there with a shotgun that is sawed off all the way to the point that the actual shells are sticking out the front of the thing.
He's just walking with a handle. Think about boys.
all they got is a trigger. Yeah. Pew.
The only person more incompetent than them is the guy who actually hires them to do the job. I mean, 20 seconds in to see these characters on screen and hearing them talk, you're like, I wouldn't hire these guys to work at my 7-Eleven, much less do a crime job on mobsters.
Watching the movie, I was like, wow, I didn't know Mo, Larry, and Curly were all fucking in the mob. That's brilliant.
No, the thing that makes Scoot, whatever the fuck his name is, Austin Boy, Monkeyhead, less like obnoxious than his friend is that he's standing next to his friend.
Next to that guy,
like slime mold of the film, and he's like, well, at least I'm not a slime mold.
Whenever Scoot has to stand next to that greasy guy, he turns into Brad Pitt.
I just love that guy's voice, though. That guy's voice is so distinctive to where I was like, why would you hire this guy? Because nobody else talks like this guy on the planet.
See, that's the thing about this guy. He has a nasally, annoying Boston accent, and if anybody saw Argo, you probably wouldn't even recognize this guy. In Argo, he was one of the guys who were hiding out. The guy with the beard, who was kind of equally as annoying in that movie.
The bitch of the group.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, wow, that's him.
Kind of like in here.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the same actor.
Whoa.
And I think that this guy, he's going to have a huge career ahead of him, man.
As long as he doesn't grow a fucking beard, I'll never find him. I was like, where is this guy? What happened to his career?
Yeah, the guy's he's actually very versatile. I mean, he's almost a comedian with a chameleon without having to have too much makeup. I mean, the guy transforms himself, and
he's great.
Yeah,
there's scenes in this movie where you feel his terror. When he just realizes, oh man, we might get caught. We might. I mean, you worried along with the guy when he's wearing.
When things are fucked up, he shows it. You don't feel too sorry for him because he's annoying and he's stupid. He whatever happens to him, he gets what's coming to him. But he does project fear very well.
You feel like you're going to get shot just because you're watching him on the screen. Like, I can't hang out with this guy. I'm going to get fucked up.
Man, I really the hitman's going to go like, hey. You over there? What are you looking at?
Nothing. I was watching Barack Obama on TV.
Trying not to look at this guy and smell his friend.
The movie has great opening credits too.
But you know what? I have to admit though, when I was watching the opening credits, it reminded me so much of a director I love, Chris Cunningham, with this weird like moments where the film you see the camera pointing out the door, and then it turns to black, and then you hear this.
Oh, it's loud cuts. I mean,
it's very industrial.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned how great the sound is in the movie. You got to give it that.
Yeah,
I
will say I think there's a lot of technical aspects of this film that I really did enjoy. How often do you hear people raving about audio editing? But here, you can't help but notice it. It's like especially in the violent sequences where they do, like I said, it's slow motion stuff and very experimental slow motion stuff. But what you're really paying attention to, what makes it stands out, is the way they're making the sound work with the scene. The way they even use the surround within it in strange ways that make you feel uncomfortable. The whole thing is so visceral that it's painful to watch.
Yeah.
Those violent scenes. I mean, they're like, you've seen gritty noir before, but this is going to be the grittiest grit that ever noired. We're going to make this so fucking dark and ugly that you can't believe that you're even still sitting through it. And that's exactly how I felt.
I like grits, by the way.
You like grits?
Oh, they're tasty.
Put some of that greasy butter in there, like looking like this guy. You know,
Yeah, you're right. All you have to do is take the slime mold guy and wipe him around the plot.
pick him up and squeeze him, ring him down.
But I have to tell you, though, I hope like it gets recognized at the Oscars, because I mean, when you hear somebody get shot or a car getting hit, I mean, you feel it. I mean, you really do. I think it's the closest thing you can get to like a 4D experience watching this on the screen with that sound.
It's like 3D for your ears.
Yeah, that's right.
It's what punctuates the whole gist of most of the movie, of the like, hey, you like a gritty crime drama? I love those. Well, come here and sit down. You know what? Ride along and be a part of it. Wait, I thought this was going to be fun. It's not fun at all.
But I think ultimately that's the biggest problem I have with it, is that I didn't think it was fun at all. I didn't have fun with it. I could admire it technically on some level. I could admire the performances. I very much like, it's Brad Pitt. I love Brad Pitt. He's so fucking charismatic in this thing. Even though I sat and listened to what he's actually saying, the dialogue's just not that good, but he carries it because he's fucking Brad Pitt and he's just that much.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
But I mean, everybody is good to a varying degree in here. It's just ultimately the core of what it is and what's happening and what happens to these characters, I was less than impressed by. I mean, for one thing, there's nobody in here who's a redeemable person on any level, nor does it at any point hint that there is. Not that there's anything wrong with telling a story with those type of characters, but it does kind of make it harder for me to really give a shit what happens to anybody when everybody is a piece of shit, which is definitely the case here.
Might have been the point of the movie.
I agree it is, but that doesn't change the fact that it makes it harder for me to enjoy the experience. It tries so hard to be ugly that it absolutely achieves it.
Well, Leon
and
has
it
a
makes
point.
it not terribly fun to watch.
Leon has a point. Why don't you give your rating then?
Yeah, you.
Are we there?
Yeah, you might as well give it right
but
now.
you just gave what's pretty much a summation.
Like there was a lot of things I think that you can like here, and I think people really admire the darkest of dark noir. Like, and I know you do, Leon. That's definitely one of your things. Is like going to really embrace the things about this that stand out in that way. But for me, it was just too. It rambled too much. It was too aimless, and it was too heavy-handed with its little tricks here and there. So ultimately, I'm going to give it a high rental. I do think it's worth seeing, but you don't have to rush out.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, I wouldn't mind rushing out to see it again. But I mean, it is one of those movies where I do see some of the flaws you guys are talking about, but I don't think they're as big and as like beating you over the head severely. Like you guys are pointing it out. I mean, sure. Once Brad Pitt hits the screen, I'm completely mesmerized into the film, because at that point I understand really what is going on, what is the whole point of the film, and I love that. It's all the in between shit they don't show you in mob movies, and I love stories like that. They kind of taken it out of the box and made it new again for me. I love the performances, watching everyone, all these characters, they all served a purpose and a point to the story, and I appreciate that. The visuals of it, the directing of it, it's great. But no, the movie does have its parts where it needs to, it needs to be trimmed down a bit. But I mean, overall, man, wow. The more I thought about the movie, the more I really enjoyed it. And I'm gonna give it a matinee, because there are, like, with all this shit on TV, it does get to a point where you just, you're just like, you want to yell at the director, dude, stop it already. Just stop. We get it. We fucking get it already. You don't need that. You got Brad Pitt here. Brad Pitt can talk me into wearing a fucking dress right now, and I'll do it because he's that fucking good in your movie. Let the characters tell you what's going on in this world. I don't need the fucking TV in the background telling me as well. I don't need that. So it's a matinee.
Are we actually going to add the video that Brad Pitt sent us to co-host in a dress?
No.
Please don't. I send it. Yeah. I'm praying to God Tim doesn't put it in one of his movies.
I already posted it to Facebook. Sorry.
I'm getting ready to put on a Brad Pitt mask right now. Hey, co-host, I'm Brad Pitt. Will you wear this nice sundress for me, please?
Oh, of course, but of course, Mr. Pitt.
Brad Pitt, why your hair so black?
You must be making barbecue or something.
Just dirty. It'll come off.
Sorry, I was touching that slime mold guy.
You want to go, or do you want me to go?
Oh, you go.
Okay, because I'm very simple. I think there, as I said, a lot of great things that should be recognized in this movie. But a movie commits the ultimate crime to me when it...
Crime.
What's that?
Crime.
What are you saying it like that for?
It's a crime film. You said it commits the ultimate crime.
Shut your ass up. Let me finish this,
Hey, man. Don't get mad at me because you're not on the ball.
Ruining my,
Yeah.
interrupting my flow. But no, it does. It's a crime movie that commits its own crime of just not trusting its audience, and it should. I mean, because if it was able to do that, this movie would be a lot tighter and a whole lot better. It would have a better story. In addition, with all the things that I've mentioned and a lot of things that you guys have even mentioned that you don't even know that you've similarly have complained about, I'm right there with you, man. I'm going to give this a high rental.
And now, the wrong guy.
Now let me tell y'all how it really is. Cyrus,
The lowdown.
Are you going to wrap this?
You
It sounded
actually-
like it was the beginning of the Prince of Bel-Air.
Well, Cyrus, you hit upon something in that my like for gritty, noir and crime films.
Very much part of your when I think of the stuff you love.
Yeah. And there's actually a bunch of them that I don't like. Some that are just so cynical and kind of cheap that they turn me off. And at points, this had that where like that shock to where I was like, oh, geez, I don't know if I'm really ready for this. I'm older now. I don't need that. But I found that because of the characters, and I thought the dialogue was great. It had me like laughing through most of it, or at least appreciating it to the point I was like, wow, I'm really a sucker for this more than anything else. Yeah. And for me, the only real failing is that because of the political message that they kept throwing at us before, I thought, okay, at the end, it'll sum up into something that'll make sense, that'll really make it all come together. And you have that speech that happens toward the end, and then when I was like, okay, and now will come the part where it's like, oh, nope, that's sort of, oh.
You didn't like that speech?
Well, no, I didn't like the speech.
I fucking love that speech. I thought that was like the gist of the movie. That was like it boiled everything down.
But that's the thing.
To
It's
that
like back to
speech.
Cyrus's point. Like that was the thing I didn't need. I didn't need a summation of it
What do you
because
need?
at that point I got it.
What do you mean you didn't need that?
Or had there been something else behind that, then
There was something else behind that. It was
Destroy
him being
each other,
pissed off
yes.
as well.
Slide that-
Leon, get the fuck out of my car! Get the fuck out of here!
Yes,
Leon is a
your friend has betrayed you, Cole.
friend. Oh yeah, just like in the mob, it's always your friend that ends up pulling the trigger.
Who ratted you out now?
You son of a bitch! Leon.
But
Come
I
on.
think there's plenty of room to have an artistic crime or gangster film that's not a Tarantino knockoff. There's
Okay, man, I got to really rush you because we've been going on for over 30 minutes. We all give like long summations. I know you'll get mad at me, but
whatever. Except for the last part, I agree completely with the co-host. I'm almost at a low full price, but yeah, I'd say a very high matinee.
really, oh wow, you surprised me with that.
Really?
Yeah, I thought you were gonna give it full price. I thought because like he said, these are movies that you really love. And
I do. You know what? The thing I thought is like, man, if it was like just having seen Killer Joe this year, like that's a full
Much
price.
better.
Yeah.
But it just like it missed the mark of being right there with Killer Joe. So it's almost a low full price, but I'd say a very high matinee.
All right, I'm back with you. I'm your friend. Yeah, you and me.
And I'm sorry I came in and killed your summary, but I did it softly. Man.
It was very quiet.
What?
It was beautiful.
Stroked your hair and everything.
It was
By the
downy
way,
softness.
you can
Yeah.
keep your $50. We,
Decides who to free and who to blame.
You ever killed anyone? They cry, they plead, they call for their mothers.
And the man comes around.
I like to kill them softly, from a distance. You come up here to do something, remember?
I don't take orders from you.
Get out of the car now!
I didn't do nothing. Know what you gotta do, right? You know, this is a business of relationships. Don't make me less.
The man comes around.
I'm living in America, and in America, you're on your own.